Hi, this is Laura Lark, and today I am going to give a demonstration on the color wheel, a little bit of color theory, and I'm going to show you a few tricks that I have up my sleeve. Very few, but a few. I'll allow that. And today I'm going to teach you how to mix colors with watercolor, and we're also going to learn how to mix black. And so today you'll probably end up with something that looks similar to this. I've attached a template that you can print out, and you can use the template if you'd like. You don't have to, but we're going to get a product that looks pretty much like this, except for I have added the complementary colors too, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about are the various colors in the color wheel. And you may see that I've numbered these few, and these colors are on my color wheel. And so the first thing we're going to talk about are the primary colors. You'll know that the primary colors are ones that cannot really be mixed. They are like the original colors. And I've put a 1 near all of my primary colors. And my primary colors are yellow, red, and blue. Okay? So I've put a 1 near all of these. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to color in my primary colors. And I'm going to start with red because it's probably the easiest to see. So I'm going to turn this around a little bit so that the red is facing me. And I'm going to, since I don't have to mix this with anything, I'm going to go ahead and mix this in my pan. And I'm using the cadmium pale, red pale hue. And, okay, so I feel like I've got enough. I've got a pretty thick, kind of watery thing on my brush, and I'm going to lay down. The reason why I'm starting with red is because cadmium red is a fairly opaque hue, and the thing is that if you know what opaque means, it means that you can't see through it. It's the opposite of transparent. And so what I did is I'm trying to lay down as deep and rich and opaque a color as I can right off the bat. And so then what I can do is I can dip my my paintbrush in the water. I'm going to tap it off a little bit. You don't want too much water here. And what we're going to try to do is pull out a mid-tone here. Here I'm ready to go to my second primary color, and so the next one that I'm going to go to, because it's darkest as well, is I'm going to use ultramarine blue. Mix some water up here to try to get a thick, very thick, kind of soupy, kind of, you've left your cereal in the milk too long, and it kind of changes the consistency of the milk. Oh, it makes the milk a little thicker, and that's what we want here, because we want to lay down our most saturated color here. And ultramarine blue is a little bit more transparent than some of these other blues. So to get a really dark, really saturated color, you're going to have to load up your brush here. That big. So we've got our second primary color, and next our final primary color, which I'm going to get my brush very clean for this. But the third one is yellow, and it has, and cadmium yellow, like cadmium red, can come on pretty strong, and it can be a nice, dense, saturated color. The cadmiums do that with the paints here. And 3. All right, now the second type of color that we're going to look at on the color wheel is going to be the secondary color. And a secondary color results from two primary colors being mixed together. So here I've labeled these things 1, so if I get 1 plus 1, I'm going to get a secondary color. And the yellow and the red make orange. That's a secondary color, and I put that 2 right there. All right, the red and the blue, those are both, I always use a red is 1 plus blue is 1, and you get 2, which is you're going to get violet or purple. It's going to be those are going to be a little challenging. We'll get to that. And then the final secondary color, because there are 3 primary colors and 3 secondary colors, and our third one that we're going to talk about is a combination between yellow 1 and blue 1, another 1 equals green, and that's your 2. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the combination of, and so these are your secondary colors, and they are a result of the blending of 2 primary colors. Now this secondary color I'm going to work on here is, we're going to try to get an orange, and we're going to do it by mixing together our cadmium yellow and our cadmium red pale. Okay? Now, 2 of these are real hot colors, and hot colors, you just think of it as fire and water. Like those, there are cool colors and there are hot colors. And the hot colors are the ones that you stereotypically think of when you think of fire. Okay, like reds and yellows and things like that. There is a little bit of blue in a real fire, but for the most part, it's reds and yellows, and those are your hot colors. Whereas your cool colors are going to be like blue and green, and they're going to be more like water. So just think of that as fire and water. Now, for these cadmium, I should have started with the yellow, because these guys come on like gangbusters, and these darker values can overshadow a lighter one. Like, these are kind of like really strong pigments, and they're blended and these will overtake the yellow very easily. So it's better to work by putting the yellow down first and then mixing in a red. And so here I'm going to talk a little bit more and show you how to do things, but I'm going to speed this part up in the speedy part of the speedy video, and so you'll just be able to follow along. Okay, now for our last secondary color, we're going to mix violet. But I'm going to tell you a couple of secrets because paint and sometimes theory don't always match up. And so the thing is that if you mix up, if you mix up one red plus one blue over here, you're going to be mixing cadmium red and ultramarine blue. And I'll tell you what, a lot of times the color that you end up getting with the cadmium red and the ultramarine blue is this, and it's not quite as violet as we really like. And sometimes we, want to get a more intense purple and stuff, like a real purple, and you can do it with this color, set that you have. And so I'm just showing you a couple of other recipes, but to get a really nice color of violet, which is what I want here, I am not going to use the cadmium red with the ultramarine blue because it makes it kind of brownish, because the cadmium red is such a hot color. And so this is the color you're going to get if you mix these two together. Here's the color, the kind of purplish that you're going to get if you mix alizarin crimson with your intense or phthalo blue. Okay, that's getting a little closer to the violets that we want. But to get the real purple that I really want to work with here, I mixed up the alizarin crimson right here, which everybody has in their kit, and I mixed that with the ultramarine blue. And so that gives me a violet that I'm happier with. Gives it. Okay, we have done all of our primary colors. One red, yellow, one red, and one blue. That's primary. Primary plus another primary is a secondary, and we've gone through that. And they are blue and yellow making green, yellow and red making orange, and orange and blue, red and blue making violet. And so the next group that we're going to look at are the tertiary colors. And so those are a combination of one primary color, here's one, and you add it to a secondary color. So that Okay, we are on the final stretch of this color wheel video, and the last things I want to talk about are complementary colors and tints, tones, and shades, and also mixing black, and then we'll be done. The complementary colors they are opposite one another on the color wheel. So red and green, and the reason why they are not mixed, but when they're set next to each other, they really do a number on you optically, and that's why a lot of sports teams have complementary colors, because they just kind of pop with the eye. Like the complementary colors are red and green, and you just automatically, can conjure up the Christmas red and green, and it's almost an electric thing that happens to your optic nerve when those two are combined. And so the next one is blue and orange. Go Bears. These are real popular. Combinations of colors, just because they just pop right out at you. And the last one is yellow and violet, and I think what's that? I always think of Mardi Gras colors and everything like that when you think of when you think of yellow and violet. So those are the complementary colors. Now, if you mix up, like if you mix yellow with violet, you're going to get this kind of little muddied brown. But the thing is, there are all kinds of shades of brown you're going to be finding out with the watercolor, and sometimes you're going to want a nice brown that will offset, say, something in yellow. If you add a little violet to that, you're going to end up getting a nice realistic shadow to it. So don't. And the same thing goes for the other complementary colors on the color wheel. So green is red, and orange and blue, and yellow and violet. Okay, and they mix up. Each has a very distinct difference for brown. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to talk about here, is one of them is like tints, tones, and shades, and a lot of people don't know the difference between three of them, the three of them. And the thing is that you have your Chinese white here in your palette. So the thing is that a tint is a color with white added to it. And so not only can you lighten something up and make it more, you can lighten something up, you can also make it more opaque by adding white. And I'm just going to show you really quickly what a little bit of white can do to a little bit of alizarin crimson. It'll lighten it up, and it's also going to make, that's a nice color. So, just to keep that in mind. You can add, and if you want more white, but you have to keep in mind that these things are ultimately very transparent colors. Now, if you've ever heard of gouache, G-O-U-A, it's, I think, somewhere in there, anyway, I'll spell it on the screen. But here's a nice pink, and I got that from adding white, which is what you're going to do if you want to create a tint. Any color plus white is a tint. Now, a shade, on the other hand, is any color mixed with black. And so the thing that I'm going to move to now is I'm going to show you how to mix black, because I don't ever use the black that comes with a paint set, because that's okay in graphic, if you are going to do stuff in graphics, like in cartoons and stuff like that, a real saturated black is necessary. But if you're doing anything realistic, you're going to want to add a more subtle black there. And so I'm going to show you how to mix up a warm black and a cool black. And you'll see that there are, in that case, then there are warm grays and cool grays. And it's just like the colors that you get in your Copic markers, because Copic markers are basically watercolors in a tube. They're both transparent media. My favorite way to mix up black, my personal favorite, is when I mix ultramarine blue with burnt umber. And you're going to say, how does that make black? And it's going to, and you're going to think that you're not going to get it at first. But you have to use a lot of pigment, because the more pigment it adds, it removes the whiteness, like from the surface below, and you want to get a lot of pigment together here. and that'll give you a really saturated black. And I'm just so that's one way to mix black. And then another way that I like to that can be done is basically mixing two, severely dark complementary colors, and those would be alizarin crimson plus viridian green. And I know that every kid has it. And so for this viridian green, this is a very saturated green, and it will overrun my alizarin crimson very quickly, because it's a very deep color, and I'll show you what I mean in just a sec. And here I am, not showing you, having this in the picture. So anyway, here I am mixing up some alizarin crimson. My hand's always in the way. This is just, I'm not Bob Ross, okay, gang? And so the next thing that I want to do is just get got black with a cool black with the alizarin crimson and the viridian green, and a warm black with the ultramarine blue and the burnt umber. And so this is the color wheel plus the complements plus how to mix black in watercolor. Okay, so I said that I was done, and I forgot to finish talking about the tints and the tones and the shades. So I went ahead and mixed that stuff up on the side here. And so for alizarin crimson, when I add white here, I get kind of this a much pinker, because this is where like the pastel colors come. They're actually called tints. And then if I take the same shade and add a little bit of black, I get this darker color. And now this is where it's kind of tricky for watercolor, because you know, to get a lighter gray from black, you just add water to the black. So that's what I did here, and I achieved a tone with the alizarin crimson right here. There's a tone of that. And so I did it for the cadmium red too. And cadmium red plus white, that makes like kind of a, I mean, you're almost getting towards that dreamsicle orange, which is nice. And over here, you're getting a dark, you know, a kind of muddied red. When I add the black to make a shade. And over here, I just add a little bit more water to the black and then added that. And so you get this kind of muddy reddish color here when I make a tone. And that's actually the color plus gray. Now, well, I'm finished. So thank you very much for listening and watching. And I think that you should have fun. Okay? Thanks.